Hi there. So in this video, I thought we'd just take a look at something a little bit different to normal. So we're just going to go through a few races, jumping in, jumping out of them. And it's something that traders do where you take the next race, you jump in, you see what's going on, you place your trades and you get out and you move on to the next race. So I'm just going to show how we can do this, same kind of technique, but instead of trading, we're going to be betting. So just follow through. Hopefully we'll get some winning races to show you how it's done. Jumping in, jumping out, and moving on to the next race. And obviously, because of time limits, everything will be quite quick. We'll be going through things pretty fast, and we'll just be rapidly going through some of these races to see how we can find the contenders very quickly, what we can do in different race conditions, and how we can break that down, use the market to highlight the direction we may want to go in, and how we may want to bet based on that risk that we have evaluated. Okay, so I'm just going to jump over to Betfair here, and the next race is the 150 at Ascot. So I'm going to come here to the 150 at Ascot, open that race up, and let's see what we've got. Okay, so the first thing that we can see straight away is there's quite a lot of runners in this race. If we scroll down, we've got 15 entries here. So I'm going to get rid of immediately any runner with odds more than 30, just to shrink this down as fast as possible. 30 is my own personal preference. I find that's quite a good level. Okay, that drops that down. Next thing I'm going to do is open the PR odds, and you'll see that I use similar approaches all the way through. Circus Maximus has the highest probability here based on PR odds alone, and then they become a little bit samey going down. So I'm just going to leave that as Circus Maximus highlighted there. If we sort by Betfair odds, we can see that Circus Maximus is currently second favourite just as well. This particular race has high VDW win and place percentages. I'm just keeping my eye down here on the time. We've got 4 minutes. High VDW win and place percentages. So I am going to take a look at the VDW score, sort in order. The lowest score is the best. I'm looking for horse in the top 4. Again, Circus Maximus shows itself up here. Interestingly, Mahava and Terabellum also are in there. And if I sort again in order, I've marked them because they are also in the top 4 of the market. I don't think that the other, the fourth in the market was there. No, Fox Chairman is down here, so I'm going to leave that as it is. Okay, we're starting to get a bit of a feel now. Days since last race got a bit of concern over Mahatha, 430 days. Terabellum is great. Circus Maximus, 321 days. If I just open Circus Maximus's history, we can see last race on the 21st of August last year was beaten, hasn't run since then, but all the previous races were good, so it's just been off for a while. Has there been any other big gaps previously? Yes, 2018 to 2019 it came back with a win by 1.25 lengths, so that's positive there as well. Okay, so I'm coming back here. I'm going to run a very quick Monte Carlo simulation on this race and see what we get from that. So this will just take a moment or two. While that's running, we'll also note that the going is good to soft. This race is over a mile, and the prize money is 148,000. Just keeping an eye on what's happening here as the simulation runs. At the moment, it looks like actually Moustache Tree is up the front, but it's changing a little bit. Terabellum is possibly closing in there slightly. Circus Maximus as well. Looks like it might be joint with Mutashri. Okay, we're finished. Now, just to make it easier to see, I'm going to exit the simulation and reopen it, and then we get the list of those horses down. We've got 2 minutes now until this race. Circus Maximus is actually at the top along with Mustachio. They're the same. Drop down to Terabellum and a further drop down to Mahatha. 430 days since last good run for Mahatha, which is a bit of a concern there. So that's good. It's looking strong for Circus Maximus. I'm just going to open Mahatha very quickly. And again, not run, just coming down here. So its last good race was actually last April. It did have a run in October, but it was last April. It was its last good race. Potentially could come back strong though. Okay, so time's running short. Circus Maximus looks briefly to be the quickest. I'm just going to have a very, very quick glance at PFP. Middle of the field, that's fine. And speed, again, middle of the field for this distance, which is absolutely fine. So I'm liking Circus Maximus. I'm going to come over here. They're now at the post. Circus Maximus odds of 5.4 is now dropped into the favourite. The place market is giving Circus Maximus odds of 2.42, and for 4 places we have 1.9, which is kind of getting a bit low. So I think it's got a good chance of placing. I'm going to go for an 80-20. So let's just do these quickly. I'm going to do them to £10 bets because that makes it nice and easy to follow in terms of staking. We can see here that jumping in there, we'd make just under £9 if Circus Maximus won, and in the place market we would make just over £11 if Circus Maximus comes in the top 3 places. That means if this horse comes in the top 3 places only, we'll make £11 minus our £2 stake on the win market, so we'd still walk away with around £9 profit for a £10 bet. So that's a strong bet there. Now the next race is the 205 at Thirsk. So I'm just going to jump over to the 205 at Thirsk very quickly. Since that gives us a little bit more time, we've got kind of about 15 minutes. Pardon me. So we might be able to go into this one in a little bit more detail. Okay, so here's the 205 at Thirsk. It's a maiden race. So in a maiden race, we're going to rely quite heavily on the market because we don't have that much information. While I'm going through this race, because we've got a bit of time, I'm also going to be jumping over here just to see when this race goes off and what happens. So, coming over to Thirsk, again, I'm just going to start the same way. I'm going to get rid of these high odds horses, and we got horse at 120, horse at 100, and a horse at 80. So they're all going, and that's from the Betfair odds column down here that I'm sorting in order of odds, favourite to outsider. I'm going to start in the same way, except actually no, I'm going to start slightly differently in this race. It's a maiden race. So I'm going to start with this compiled factor here, and I'm just going to highlight the top 4 horses. Note that VDW place is pretty strong here at 92%, although the race win score 68% is quite low. That means we can expect a horse with the VDW in the top 4 for VDW score to have a very high place rate. One of them is very likely to place. Has this race gone off yet? No. Oh, and there it goes. It's gone off. Okay. So we'll keep a bit of an eye on that. I'll jump back there in a second. I've sorted the maiden fillies race 5, 2, 7, 8 in order. The top 4 horses win between 52 to 78% of the time for this factor. That's why I've highlighted them there. You'll notice there's one outsider and the others are kind of near the top of the market, except for Poet's Lady, who is currently third favourite down here. But that's just the first stage. The second stage is the PR odds. Let's have a quick look at the probabilities. And we've got Licit up here, strong. Actually, we've also got Poet's Lady is looking strong, so I'm just going to select that. And these other 3 down here that were in the top 4, 5, 2, 7, 8, we're not giving so much weight to, but I'm still going to leave them highlighted for the moment so we're aware of them. Let's just jump back over to here, see how we're doing. Circus Maximus odds have dropped. If you were a trader, you could now green out on that particular race, make a profit. Okay, coming back to here, the race that we're interested in. This is a 7 furlong race, so it's going to be hopefully be fairly fast. Poet's Lady has got a speed rating, which is good to know. And if I sort by the PFP, which is a kind of form-based rating, we can also see Poet's Lady is currently the highest scoring. that having been done, I am going to run Monte Carlo simulation, but I'm going to use a different race card. I'm going to use this overview race card here. It just has a little bit more detail on it because there's not many ratings in this race. Most of the horses haven't run or haven't really run at all. So as you can see, we're very slim on information. So I'm going to use a race card that has a chance of actually giving the horses a little bit of something, as we can see here. And it's particularly these additional points here for PFP where we can see those scores. So I'm just going to run that simulation. I'm just going to leave everything there, not taking anything out. Run that simulation. And while that's running, I'm going to jump back over here to see Circus Maximus has won, which is wonderful news. So we get the just under £9 profit there. We'll also get the place market bet there for £11. So we're going to make around £20 profit there to our £10 stake. So that's a great start. That's a great start. Also gives us a little bit of leeway going forwards if we come up against some races that we maybe get the losers on or don't win. Which of course is going to happen. We're not going to win every race. We just need to win more than we lose, obviously. So this simulation is quite interesting. We can already see Mahag's Princess is kind of coming up. Poet's Lady kind of coming up as well, and Licit's not far behind. So at the moment it's following something that we've already thought is likely to be good, but we are going to put quite a lot of weight on the market in this particular race. Let's just open that up again and sort in order of horse. Okay, so Mahag's Princess is up there, currently has Betfair odds of 15.5. Joint favourite from this simulation is Poet's Lady, who we've already got. And then we've got Licit, pardon me, and you'll notice that actually our other three, and these were 5278, if you remember, these were 5278 top four ranking. These were the other three after Licit. They are kind of there as well, coming down the field. So everything's looking good. Possibly Mahag's Princess has something that we're not sure about. We'll jump in there, have a look. Okay, let's just exit out of there. Now, I'm just going to have a quick scan through here to see here, these PFP LR scores. And this shows us how many points a horse has had in its last three races in total added. So in this last race, this horse lost just over 3 points for this rating. Across the last two races, it lost just under 3 points. So that tells us, because in the last two races it lost more points than in its last race, it obviously gains some point in its second from last races. So what I'm really looking for here is I'm looking for a gradient, ideally consistent, solid, static kind of numbers, or slowly increasing, preferably along all four of these. Now, obviously, none of these horses have got 4 races in, but we can see here Chardonnay had a slight increase in its only race. Licit had a slight increase in its last race, a slight drop in the one before, but overall an improvement. Same with Mahag's Princess, ran a good race last time. Here, Poet's Lady, we've seen 2 nice increases there. So, and that's what we're looking for. We're looking for the last race to have an increase, the last 2 races to have a slightly higher one than that, the last 3 races, if we've got that data, to go up again slightly. So this is another kind of bump probably for Poet's Lady, maybe a small bump for Licit there as well. So at the moment, Poet Lady is looking good. Mahag's Princess has only come up in the simulation so far. Now, I'm going to show pace, but we probably haven't really got huge amounts of data. This is a 7 furlong race. It's predicted to be slow, which means up here that we write, there's a bit of information up the top here that tells you what a slow race means, what you should be looking out for. So when we predict that the race is going to be slow, we're looking for mid-pack horses that can get in the lead. Usually in these races, or often when the race is slow, we don't get a horse that specifically wants to lead. If we can, that horse maybe gets an edge. And you can see here that actually Red Poppy has a total pace figure of 0.33, which is higher than the rest. But bear in mind, we don't really know. We haven't got much data. So what we are showing here is very limited, it's very rough, it's very estimated. But if Red Poppy can get that lead, possibly has a potential there to win. Notice as well, this horse is the favourite. That could be why. So I'm just going to get rid of that. These races are hard because we haven't got much data at all. But at the moment, we've got Poet's Lady, looks to be strong. Illicit is a potential. Red Poppy we've now added in as a possibility. And Mahag's Princess came up in the simulation, but isn't actually really showing us anywhere else. So let's just have a quick look in here. Mahag's Princess, jumping back, sorry, just to show you, we've got a flat turf race, good to soft, over 7 furlongs. Okay. Coming back here, we've got an all-weather race, which is not relevant to us, and we've got a hurdle race. So Mahag's Princess, we don't know, hasn't performed very well in either of those races. The all-weather race was over a mile. On standard ground, but still didn't perform well. So there's nothing there for me particularly to be confident in. Having a look at Licit. We can see here again 2 all-weather races coming onto the flat turf. We've got a 7-figure here, though, both actually on slightly slower ground. 7 furlong was beaten long way, and only beaten by 1 length in the last race at Kempton over a mile. But obviously it's coming back from a long layoff, as are a lot of runners at the moment. Red Poppy, and this was the one potentially has that pace advantage, possibly. Only race so far, just over a mile on standard, 9.75 lengths beaten. Again, not very reassuring. And finally, Poet's Lady. Here we go. We've got 2 races here on the flat, so we've got more data that's relevant for this runner. Both of those races were soft. Both the horse was beaten, but only beaten by a short distance, was still competitive. One of them placed as well. So with all of that information, Poet's Lady is looking to be strong. We cannot ignore the fact that Red Poppy is the market favourite. I don't really like Mahag's Princess that popped up there in Monte Carlo, so I'm going to remove that. Nothing to highlight Chardonnay. Illicit's probably got potential as well. Nothing from Solar Flame. Now, if we just jump over to Betfair, let's open the 205 race here. And here we go. They're now at the post. There's actually 5 minutes until this race goes off. So let's just see what we've got here. Red Poppy's now 4. Poet's Lady is 4.5. So it looks like Poet's Lady is actually coming down. It's going to drop into the favourite in a minute. Illicit down here, 10.5. And those were our primary 3 that we were interested in. So how are we gonna bet on this? Well, we could Dutch, and if we just dropped, not Mahag's Princess. We want if we just drop Licit, Poet's Lady, and Red Poppy in, and let's just put our stake in of £10. There's not quite enough in that stake, so if we just increase that to say 25, we're not at the minimum for Betfair at a £10 stake. We increase it to 25. Actually, no, sorry. Let me increase it to 20 because that makes it easier to see percentages. And we can see here we make from a £20 stake of £14 profit. So that means we're making about a 70% roughly return if one of those horses wins. But this is a maiden, it's competitive. Any of these, Solar Flame, Angel of the Glen could come in. I mean, even Mahag's Princess, Touch of Luck, they could come in, although the market's usually quite accurate. There's high risk here, just going for that place. If we take a look at the place market, here, we can see Red Poppy's 1.74 to place, Poet's Lady 1.77, and Licit is 3. So there is, if we're going to just bet on one of these horses, there is definitely profitability. I mean, for example, if we did an 80-20 bet here, we put £8 there, you can see we would make £6 if the horse placed, subtract the £2 stake that we would put on the win, we'd still come away with about £4 profit if the horse placed and a 40% return. Obviously more if the horse won. Going to the 2-place market, I don't really think there's much value here in going to the 2 places over the win. There's still a lot of risk in this race. So I keep glancing down because I'm checking to see what the time is so we don't miss the race. 4 places, however, we possibly have a bit of an edge. I mean, Poet's Lady and Red Poppy. Again, let's just drop the stake in here. You can see we'd make £4, so we could still make a £2 profit to a £10 stake doing an 80-20 bet here, and £2 profit is still a 20% return, which is pretty good. Again, reduces that risk somewhat. We could even possibly do 2 80-20 stakes here if we wanted to. Interestingly, Illicit here has a slightly higher odds, slightly lower odds, but still above 2 for the place, and I think Illicit has a good chance of placing. So actually what I'm looking at here, for me personally, is I'm probably going to do an 80-20 on I'm going to do an 80-20 on Poet's Lady that I think has a good chance. Red Poppy is dropping in, but I do like the chance of Poet Lady over Red Poppy. There's more history there that we can actually see. So let's do the 80-20 on Poet's Lady. I'm going to go for, just check the 4 places. I think it's too low. Yeah, 1.47. So let's just go for the normal 80-20 here on Poet's Lady. I'm going to try and get 7.7-ish on that. And I'll take the SP if we don't get it matched. And I'm also going to do a small bet on Illicit to come in the top 4. So maybe, what are we doing? We're doing £10 stakes here. So maybe just £2.50, like 25% of a stake here. £3.58 to come in there. So that would, if Illicit comes in the top 4, but Poet's Lady doesn't win, this would recoup the cost of that win bet potentially. So we're just going to place that one in there as well. And I'll just drop that on to take the SP in case we don't get matched at 2.46. Okay, so that's how we kind of done in that race. Let me just drop take SP up here as well, because Poet's Lady has just dropped massively. We put it in at odds of 5 when it was 5, and it's now dropped down to 4.2. Although it was bouncing around 4.2 anyway. So this race is going to go off. We'll just have a look. The next race is Royal Ascot 225. So let's just come back to here, jump into Ascot. I'm probably doing this over a big festival when racing has recently come back from lockdown. We've got all sorts of new runners coming in. It's not the best time to start learning it, but I just wanted to show you how we can jump in just before races start, the same way that traders do, but we don't actually have to trade the race. We can do it with normal place betting, 80-20 bets, back betting, Dutch betting, however we want to follow it. Excuse me a little bit, my internet's working a little bit slowly, so some of these pages are taking a little bit longer to load than they may otherwise. That 1 mile race has now gone off. What do we end up getting matched on? We got matched at 4.1 in the end over here. On the place market, we got matched at 1.72 on Poet's Lady here. And in the 4 place market, we got matched at 2.46. So you can see what we got matched on all the way through there. So we'll just keep that open. We'll come back in a second, see what happens. 2.38, Poet's Lady is dropping down here. And I'm just looking at this in the win market. Looking at the other runners, it's bouncing around. We've got Angel of the Glen, Red Poppy, Poet's Lady, all there. And it looks like Poet's Lady's now dropping out. Yeah, Poet's Lady's not going to win this race for sure. Does it look like Poet's Lady's going to get the place? Yeah, Poet's Lady's got the place, so that's fine. We made £5, just over £5.50, £5.60 there. We lost the £2 on the win market, so we still walk away with about £3.60 profit there, which is around about 36% return on that bet. Unfortunately, Illicit didn't come in the 4, so we did lose that there. So we've lost £3.58. So we're going to bet about break even on that race, and that's primarily because I went for Illicit in the 4 places market there. If I hadn't gone for Illicit, we would have made a 36% return. As it is, we're going to make a small profit, maybe just a couple of percent return on it. So kind of a break even / small profit. Okay, Royal Ascot 225. So we're still up so far, about 20 quid, on the couple of races that we've looked at. And again, when you're doing this, you don't always get the actual bet structure right. So the bet structure is important as well. As you just saw, I didn't quite get that bet structure right. I like Licit. I possibly shouldn't have gone on it. We probably didn't have enough information on those runners. But that's fine. We move on and we don't worry about it. So again, we're going to follow a similar process. Let's just get rid of these high odds horses. Time is currently 10 past 2, so we've got 15 minutes again. Just going to get rid of these horses that have really high odds. That's not to say that they won't win. They might win. It's just that I'm not prepared to bet on them at such high odds. Next thing, notice the VDW place is super strong. So I'm just going to have a look at that first. And that shows the top 4 horses. One of these 4 horses in similar races historically, one of the top 4 horses have placed 100% of the time. So that's a very, very useful piece of information to know when we're going to be betting. So I've just highlighted them. Checking the PR odds, let's sort by probability. We can see that we are agreeing here. Miss Yoda by far has the highest. Then followed by Trefoil, and then there's kind of the others. There's not huge amounts between them, but Ennis Dimon is down much lower. But there's not huge amounts going on here between them. Interestingly, the favourite we have kind of down in the middle here. So Frankly Darling. But Miss Yoda there, matching everything else in Trefoil, as well. So Frankly Darling I'm going to leave highlighted. I'm actually going to take off Ennis Dimon because it's out of this one. We can bring it back again later on. Frankly Darling I'm going to leave highlighted because it's currently the market favourite. And we're also going to leave these 2 up here. I'm not going to highlight West End Girl because its odds are currently too high, over 30 for me. I'm just going to drop back to our standard race card now. And we can have another look at this overview one later if we've got a bit more time. Okay, so having a look at this race card, we've not been able to unfortunately calculate 5278 figure for this race. We can't always calculate them. If we can't calculate them, if we haven't got enough data to calculate a rating accurately, we just don't calculate it. Trefoil has had 237 days since its last good race, which is a bit of a concern considering all the others have had good races recently. So let's just open Trefoil's history here. And just to remind you, the conditions up here: flat turf, good to soft, 1 mile 3 furlongs with 65,000 prize money. So flat turf, 1 mile 2 furlongs, very similar. Good going, not soft. Ran an okay race, but still beaten by nearly 4 lengths. There, and then coming down here to the 23rd of October 2019, so that was recently. Coming down here, came first in a 1 mile race, not such a high class, but was on soft ground. Does that mean the horse prefers soft ground? Probably not. Here we can see, looked well, slowly into stride and then recovered. And looks like we've not got in running comments, unfortunately, for that one yet. We're going to come back to some of those horses. I will now have a quick look at good races in the last 10. Miss Yoda, who is a strong one, has had 4, and that gives a high win history score. Frankly Darling is the favourite, has had 2, but also has a high win history score. And just coming back to the horses, you'll get that from Frankly Darling because you can see here it's won by 5 lengths, actually just recently. Going to be one of the reasons favourite. Won by 5 lengths recently on slow ground, all-weather ground, over 1 mile 2 furlongs. Previous to that, 22nd of October, I think one of the other horses we looked at was 22nd of October. On heavy ground, was only beaten by 1 length. So it's likely to like the ground condition. Pardon me. It's likely to like the distance. And it's shown that this horse can run on the flat. So it's just about class for this horse. That's going to be why this horse is the favourite. And actually, I'm going to open the speed graphs for this race, and let's see what we've got here. Okay, we haven't got huge amounts, which is kind of as we're expecting. So Hold Fast looks to be solid down here. Just let me come back over to here. I see Hold Fast currently has odds of 27, which is interesting. Has performed very well in the past. Up here we can see history, but this is going back a long way, 2010, and then drop right down. So I don't want to be blinkered by what happened so long ago. So I'm just going to zoom in. Oh, a bit too far. On recent races. Now we can filter these races to similar conditions, but there's not really enough. There's not really enough runners or races to make that worthwhile. So instead I'm just going to look at what we can see. So first of all, in fact I am going to filter, so I'm going to change my mind. There's a reason for this. I'm going to go flat turf, good to soft and good. Just filtered by those simple conditions because we haven't got much. And the reason for that is next to each horse here in brackets, you can see we have a score, and this score is actually a dynamic speed rating. So this is a speed rating calculated based on the settings in that filter. So in this case, turf races, good to soft ground conditions. And we can see from that Trefoil is up here at the top. If we come back over, where was Trefoil? Trefoil was kind of third favourite. We weren't sure about that particular runner, but we can see in this graph, based on those conditions, it's up near the top, as is, interestingly, West End Girl, who we haven't yet mentioned, really. West End Girl's here, odds of 38, that's why we haven't really mentioned it. Down here, we can see Barani Star, and over here, we can see Golden Lips. But you'll notice that actually very few of the horses that we're interested in, the horses near the top of the market, are showing. So let's just reset that, and zoom back in to recent racing. And on recent racing across all race conditions, we get a bit of a different picture. First thing is down here, we can see Trefoil again is looking pretty strong, and it's looking like this horse is kind of near the top. Hold Fast is also looking actually pretty strong. And then we drop down a little bit. Born with Pride, Barani Star, coming down to Frankly Darling, right down here to Passion, which is not looking good at all. And Enestimon was okay back here, but recently not great. Over on this side, we've got Golden Lips, who has improved. And then we've got West End Girl kind of bouncing around a little bit here. Miss Yoda is here somewhere. I'm just going to remove some of these horses so we can see. Hang on. I'm going to remove Frankly Darling. No, hold on. So let me bring Trefoil back in. What's the time? Keep an eye on time. We've got plenty of time. So I'm going to bring Trefoil back in. I'm going to remove these horses that we haven't been able to create speed figures for. That's why there's nothing next to their names. I'm going to remove Passion. I'm going to remove Born with Pride. I'm going to remove Enestimon. I'm going to remove Barani Star. And there is Miss Yoda. You can see now it's just tucked in here. That score came first. So actually all of these horses look like they have potential. Hold Fast, Trefoil, Miss Yoda, West End Girl, Golden Lips. I'm going to leave that up because I'm going to need to do a Monte Carlo simulation here. This is looking like it's going to be difficult. It's going to be looking like it's a complicated race. Possibly a race that actually we just want to sit back and watch, but we'll just keep an eye. We're coming up to 20 past, so let's just have a look at the market. Frankly Darling is the favourite, followed by Trefoil, Miss Yoda. Who else do we have on the graph? West End Girl, Golden Lips, and Hold Fast. Golden Lips we're going to scrap because the odds are far too high. Same with West End Girl. So I'm just going to drop them off here. We're going to take the market being correct. Golden Lips. So there we can see now Miss Yoda over here. Hold Fast and Trefoil. Trefoil, Miss Yoda. Hold Fast is still a bit high now at 42, so we're probably not going to go for that runner. And you can see we're actually now starting to limit it down a bit, so now we're down to kind of Miss Yoda and Trefoil. Let's see how we did on the simulation. Bring that results back up here. Miss Yoda at the top again, followed by Trefoil. West End Girl keeps popping up. West End Girl keeps popping up, and then Frankly Darling back in the middle of the field again, which is interesting. So that's kind of following what we have already said, what we've expected, and then Hold Fast is kind of down here. West End Girl. If we bring West End Girl back up here, there you see West End Girl is bouncing around a bit here, and where are we? Currently has odds of 60. So I wouldn't normally suggest when you're doing this to go for anything on an outsider, but maybe we'll have a little bit of fun. Have a look at that in a minute. So we got 5 minutes left. Miss Yoda, Trefoil are looking to be our strongest in this particular race, over 1 mile 5 furlongs. Let's just have another look at them here. Trefoil. We know this horse is right. We know this horse is going to like the ground conditions, soft ground, 1 mile. We know the distance is okay. That distance was a little bit shorter than the current one. It was on good ground, and the horse still performed all right. Came third, but was beaten by nearly 4 lengths. Picking up Miss Yoda. We can see a recent wing at Lingfield, 1 mile 3 furlongs on slow to soft, winning by just over a length, which is great. Again, came second, beaten 3 lengths in its previous race to that, over a very similar distance again. And at a higher class. So we got a little bit more information about Miss Yoda, gives us a little bit more confidence. So this race looks fairly open. It looks like a very difficult one to analyse. Just to remind you, the PR odds sorted by order had Miss Yoda at the top here, 34%, and Trefoil 19%. So Miss Yoda looking the strongest there. Coming over to VDW score, you can see that's the same here with Miss Yoda again, but Trefoil is also pretty close. So for me, it's looking like Miss Yoda and Trefoil, and just putting these up. West End Girl has dropped in there again. So how are we going to bet on this? Well, I think we're going to not go with Frankly Darling. We're going to go with Trefoil and or Miss Yoda. So let's just see what we can do. We've got 4 minutes for this. So if we were to Dutch them, let's just take a look at our options. If we were to Dutch them on 1-1, we would win basically £20 profit. So we would make a kind of a 200% profit there. In the place market, we've got odds of kind of 1.98, 1.86 on these 2 runners. So again, actually not bad. We could just go with place bets. That makes 80-20 bets on them worthwhile as well. In the 2 place market, odds are quite high. I probably wouldn't go for the 2 place. I'm not that confident. I think we need at least 3 places. In the 4 place market, actually, again, the odds are not too bad. And for each of them, if we just put £8 in, you'd see that actually for each individually, we would walk away with a profit on an 80-20 bet there as well. If we take the favourite out, this is quite interesting. And we Dutch those 2 runners. We're going to make an £8.40 profit, so about an 84% profit. However, we wouldn't want to do that particularly, or I wouldn't want to do that particularly here, because I'm not confident enough in that favourite winning the race. And we got here the competition between Miss Yoda and Passion, and we could go for Miss Yoda over Passion there, but I'm not sure there's much of a benefit to that. Now I'm just going to come back here quickly. We've still got a few minutes, so if we were from our £10 stake, if we were betting £2.50 on each of these. I'm just doing this to see how we would make, or what kind of profits we would make if we were Dutching. So if we would Dutch the winners and we bet for the 4 places, you can see here we're not really, there's not much point in this 4 place market because if only one came in, we would actually make a loss on that market. If both came in, obviously we would make a profit, but it's not really going to be enough to cover the win. In the normal place market, if we did the same thing, here we go, let's just drop these in here so we can see. We're making around £2. So actually, again, we're going to make a loss if they don't both come in a place position. And even if they do both come in, we still wouldn't cover that win Dutch. So that brings me down to either 2 80-20 bets, 2 place bets, or a win Dutch bet. So let's just take a quick look. How long have we got here? We've got 1 minute. So let's just take a quick look on this one at 2 80-20 bets. We'd only need one of these place bets to come in. Again, we would still make a loss. So I think what I'm actually going to do in this race is I'm going to go for the Dutch on these two here. Done that wrong. Let's go for the Dutch on these two. I'm going to go against the favourite. I'm going to go for the Dutch for the win and place those bets there. We'll take the SP if we can't do it, since it's so close to the off. We've got about a minute there. So this is an example of a difficult race. The other option, of course, we could have done, if I hadn't been recording this video, the other option we could have done is to actually have just moved on to the next race, not bet in this race. We don't have to bet in every single race. If we can't find a selection, we're not 100% confident in that selection, then we can move from one race to another race without obviously placing a bet, and that's absolutely fine, and I would actually recommend that. Just going to close out some of these here. Then after this race we have the 240 at Thirsk, but we're just going to keep a quick eye on this race to see what happens. Okay, so the race has just gone in play, and essentially what we've done is we've gone against Trefoil and Miss Yoda. What we actually could have also done is we could have simply laid Frankly Darling and taken the rest of the field as well. That would have been the other way to do it. Instead of the Dutch, we could have done the lay. You can see it didn't quite get matched at the odds we put in. In fact, Trefoil came down to 5.9 on the SP from around 6.4, so quite a drop there. So not quite as good a result there for us, but you know, that is what it is, and that's how it goes. Okay, we're seeing the market moving. None of these outsiders are coming in. West End Girl has actually interestingly dropped in odds. You could have traded that horse quite nicely. Remember, everything was pointing to West End Girl being possibly not the winner, but being a better value than the odds suggested, and almost immediately the odds went down from 38 to 24. So that could have easily been traded out there if you were looking for those sorts of bets. What else have we got here? Holdfast also dropped straight down there as well, from 36 now 25. So again, there were some of those outsiders that we highlighted as possibly not being quite as outside as the market was saying. Could have been good trades if you wanted to trade, but obviously we're not trading this video. The point of this video is to jump in and out like traders, but to not actually trade, to use the ratings and the statistics that we've got to look for straight bets in the market. And how do we actually do that? Okay, so I'm just keeping an eye on this market. We can see here Trefoil's drifting out there, so that's not looking like that run is going to be doing very much for us. Frankly Darling is coming in as the favourite, and we're seeing that drift now on Miss Yoda. So it looks like Frankly Darling, looks like the favourite is going to take this race. And we will lose this bet. Okay, so far we have had one win, one break even, and one loss. And we are still up at a £10 profit, 2 £10 bets. So we're still up around about 30% return for our work. Okay, and let's take a look at one more race. We'll go into the 240 at Thirsk. Okay, the 240 at Thirsk. And you're going to see I'm going to start following a similar process here. Maybe I'll look at slightly different odds. And again, re-evaluating the race that we've just seen, possibly I could have bet slightly differently. Obviously Miss Yoda was the strongest out of the two. I went for the two. I could have actually just gone for Miss Yoda as an 80-20 in retrospect, which was our strongest out of those two. I possibly hedged the bet in the wrong way rather than taking the two. I possibly should have just hedged it on that one. So there are different ways, and it's always good to reevaluate after a race, just briefly in your mind, what happened. And we got it wrong with sorry, I've forgotten the horse's name. It's just come back with Trafar. We got it wrong. Definitely Miss Yoda. We actually got it kind of right. Frankly, Darling obviously took the edge and managed to win, but we got it right with Miss Yoda. But the structure of the bet I got wrong. So, and it's always good to just evaluate a bit like that. Okay, so this one's a non-runner that we haven't picked up yet. Sorting by Betfair odds. I'm just going to take out these high odds runners. I'm going to come back in here and check probabilities. Very strong for Scorched Breath. We can see 29% at a big jump. I'm just going to leave Scorched Breath there. 5, 2, 7, 8. We can see that actually two of these horses are quite high. And number 1 is Dream Seller. And number 4, I'm only interested in the top 4 for these runners, is Scorched Breath. Opening up here, I can see that we've got 12%. Dream Seller was actually our second best on the PR odds, so I'm also going to highlight that as well. That's sort of like 2 confirmations. 245 days since last good run, as opposed to Scorched Breath's 8. So just something worth bearing in mind there. Now I'm going to drop over to a different race card this time. Okay, and bear in mind this race is a flat turf, class 6 good to soft 7 furlongs, so it's a 7 furlong race. And I've just dropped over here because I want to look at these competitive ratings. So Dream Seller has a good competitive rating after Destroyer, and we haven't been able to make one for Scorched Breath. Scrolling along being the fact that this is a speed race, projected speed, Scorched Breath is looking to be nice and fast up there. Also has a good average speed of 94 in the last 90 days. And what other information can we see from these speed figures here? Yet to win a race. That's interesting. 0% wins, and we can see shortly just here in the last few races, no wins. However, the PFP points, last race, last 2 races, last 3 races, and last 4 races. And this is what I was saying earlier. I'm looking for this steady increase. There was a slight drop down on 3 from last, but generally we see this steady improvement here. Whereas Dream Seller is kind of bouncing about a bit. We're not seeing that steadiness that we're getting on Scorched Breath. And again, we can see speed figures for the last race is looking strong. Thori is up there, as is Destroyer as well. Just to highlight those in our mind. I'm going to run a simulation. This time I'm going to do it on this race card where we have more data. Actually, sorry, I'm going to take out the weight as well. And I'm going to leave everything else in. Right, let's run that simulation. Just keep an eye on the time there. We've still got about 7-8 minutes left before this race. Okay, that's complete. So we're going to exit out of this, reopen it so we can see it nice and clearly. Okay, Scorched Breath is at the top, as is Dream Seller. So again, that highlights an extra point, an extra validation against those runners that we've already seen. Scorched Breath being preferable, being the strongest over Dream Seller. Just going to scroll. Oh, sorry, didn't need to select all those horses. Just going to scroll along a bit here to see where we were. Scorched Breath and then Dream Seller was number 1. Okay. So Scorched Breath is looking to be the strongest, so I'm just going to take a look at this horse and see how it performs. Again, 7 furlongs, class 6 for just under 3,000 prize money, good to soft on the flat turf. So we can see this horse is an all-weather horse. First of all, it does perform well even though it doesn't win. It's not a winner, hasn't yet won a race, but it's beaten 1 length, 1.5 lengths, 3 lengths, over shorter distances. A bit of a longer distance here, didn't do so well. Then performed very badly on this one, beaten by 16 lengths, weakened there 20th, but then came back much stronger. Dropping down, let's have a look on slower ground. Was beaten 2 lengths. So seems to have a bit of difficulty with final pace in the last kind of furlong. Coming down here, heavy ground on the flat. Can't really use that as so specific. Slower ground here. We've got a mixed performance. This horse could perform well, could perform badly. Having a look at the Dream Seller was the other one. Okay, we've got some flat races for Dream Seller here. Muscle Burr, 7 furlong, soft, 1.25 lengths to the winner. Again, we're not seeing any wins down here. This horse isn't the winner, hasn't won a race really. Some more flats, a 1 mile flat on the good, beaten 1.25 lengths. Oh, there is a win here on the all-weather. Coming down, we've got some more flat races. These are a bit longer. The 7 furlong races, again, it's performed well. Coming down, flat races, perform well. So we've got a bit more performance here over flat. We can see that this horse performs well on the flat. Could do okay today. Jumping over to the race card itself. We can see Scorched Breath is currently 4th in the market. Dream Seller is 3rd. The Big House and Smeaton we've not really talked about. So we've got a few minutes, so let's just have a bit of time. Big House and Smeaton. So the Big House is 3rd here, okay. So that's not too bad. In our simulation, Big House was in the middle as well. Bouncing around a bit here. Oh no, sorry, I'm on the wrong one. We've got a nice improvement as well up here. Not very fast though. This horse is not very fast, which is a bit of a concern. And Smeaton was the other one. Let's have a quick look over here, keeping an eye on the time. Neither of these horses had a good race recently. Again, Scorched Breath has, which possibly runs in its favour. Smeaton, a little bit bouncing around, not quite as nice as a Big House, which is a smooth upgrade here, but has put better speed figures in than a Big House. But the projected speed on both of these is quite slow, whereas Dream Seller and Scorched Breath is quite high. So I think I'm going to stick with Dream Seller and Scorched Breath. I'm going to go for a bit of the outsider here, but I am tempted to go with Dream Seller because we've got a bit more history on it. Looking at the place market again, we've got 4 places on Scorched Breath. 3 places on Scorched Breath, Dream Seller here. If we did an 80-20, we get £7.60 there. Obviously, our other alternative is we could just do 2 place bets here, and again we'd make a slight loss if only Dream Seller plays, so that's possibly not the best. If we come down to the 4 place market, the odds start to drop down a lot for Dream Seller and Scorched Breath. However, this is quite an open race, and we can still make a profit on Dream Seller with an 80-20 bet in the 4 place market. We would end up with around about 20% profit if Dream Seller came in the top 4. There are a number of possibles here, so I think that might be the one we go for. AVB market, we've got the Big House on Smeaton, not a race we're going to get into. We could use a Monte Carlo simulator to try and predict that though. And then we've got the forecast. We're not going to be making forecasts in this race. So for me, it's an 80-20 on Dream Seller, and the choice is whether to go for the place market or the 4 place market, and this has to be based purely on a risk assessment and an odds. So we're getting 2 odds of 2 here, and the difference in profit would be about 30%. But there is a risk, a higher risk. So I think for this race, I'm going to go for the 4 place market, place that bet in there, take the SP on any remainder, and we're going to go for the possible win as well on Dream Seller. There we go. So we've done an 80-20 bet on Dream Seller in the 4 place market because there is risk. There's definitely risk potentially from these two who are both short in the market. Scorched Breath we think could come in. Interestingly, Destroyer is there as well. They're kind of sitting in the middle. Scorched Breath could come in if it performs well. So there's a lot of threats going on here. So we've gone into the 4 place market there as well. And some of our bets been taken, some of it hasn't because the market's just dropped down a little bit. But it will be matched at SP if it doesn't get matched. So again, that's how we've structured this market. Another possibility that you could do, just out of interest, is I'm just going to go for a big stake here. You could Dutch all of these runners, all of the ones effectively at the top end of the market, and you can see that you would walk away with around, excluding if I hadn't placed that bet on Dream Seller, you'd walk around with about £6 profit on a £50 bet. So you'd be making about 10% by basically Dutching all the major threats in this race, and that is another option as well. 6%, a 6% a 12% profit. Yeah, a 12% profit roughly if any of those major threats in this race come in. That could be another way to do this particular race as well. And there is nothing wrong with covering a large chunk of the market if you think that there are a lot of threats and you can get a decent return. If you can get kind of 5%, 6% or higher by actually Dutching the majority or all of the major threats in the race, then obviously that's a potentially a good way to do it. So we can see Dream Seller hasn't had a good start. There, odds immediately jumped straight out as they did on the Big House as well. Smeaton, it looks like it's taken the lead, and Destroyer is sitting there as well. It's going to be quite a short race, so it's only 7 furlongs. Oh, no, sorry, it's a mile. They're showing it as a mile here. 7 furlongs. So just watch this market. Dream Seller is drifting out a little bit, but we'll keep an eye and see what happens. Interestingly, Luck Out Old Make Zibak has come in down there at the bottom, just keeping an eye on that, and that now has immediately drifted out. Dream Seller's now dropped back in, which I was hoping might happen, coming in. The Big House has dropped out up there massively. Dream Seller is now shortening nicely, so definitely a threat. Looks like it's going to be between Dream Seller and Scorched Breath. The question is going to be, did we go for the right one in the end? It's definitely going to be between Dreamseller and Scorched Breath. Looks like Dreamseller has taken that race there. So we get the win and we get the 4th place market. So we get about £4.50 on the 4th place market. We get £10.50 on the win, so that's about a £15 profit there to our £10 stake. So that's about 150% return. We add that to the £10 profit we've already made, and that's about £25 profit so far on the day, and that's in about 50 minutes of jumping in, jumping out of races. So this is an example. We've been through 4 races. We spent 50 minutes. We've looked at 4 races. We looked at different ways of quickly, in kind of 5 to 10 minutes or so, stripping down to the strongest runners, how we can possibly structure some of those bets based on the risk. We've had 2 winning races. We've had 1 losing race, and we've had 1 where we kind of broke even. I think we made a 3% or something profit on it, but essentially we broke even. After each one that we didn't do well in, we considered what we could have done differently. The losing one was definitely a bet structure. We didn't quite get that right. And actually the break-even one was a bet structure too. We kind of got the analysis right. We got the threats right. We found the horses that were going to contend. We just didn't bet in the right way. And again, that happens. That's part of what goes. We spent a couple of moments analyzing how we may have been able to do that better. And then we jumped in. So this is how you can go in and out of races. You can analyze them very quickly, just looking at the data and the information before the race. One of the reasons it can work well is it doesn't give you much time to think. You have to go with your assessment. You can't second guess your own assessments, which is a really powerful thing to not be able to do. You can do this at Aldermist on our LikeReal Racing platform. It's a great way to practice. There's a race there every 10 minutes. So you can be doing this every 10 minutes. You can move from one race to the next race continuously, which is the best way to practice this technique. Get really good at it, get really strong at it, place those bets on the simulated betting, and become very proficient at using the technique. And when you start to get comfortable, when you've got a history of making that profit on the light reel, you can then start doing it on live racing like this to small stakes. If we were betting at kind of slightly bigger stakes, say £25 or £50, or even £20, we would have just made £50 in the last hour. But even at £10 stakes, we'd made £25. And of course, every hour isn't going to be like that. You're not going to make that profit all the time. And if you do this, don't do it for too long. So jump in, do maybe 3, 4, 5 races, and then leave it, have a break. Walk away, and then come back, because your concentration starts to go, and you start making bad decisions because of it. But you can do that a few times a day. You can jump in for maybe an hour, have a break for an hour or two, and then jump back for another hour, beginning of racing, end of racing, or afternoon racing, evening racing, however you want to structure it, but make sure you have that gap. And the key is to get good at jumping in like this, doing rapid analysis, build the bankroll up so you can place bigger stakes, not bet on more races, not do it for longer periods of time. So the plan is to get good at it, so you know you can jump in and, generally speaking, kind of 8 or 9 times out of 10 make a profit in that hour and then jump out again. So that's how you do it. In terms of staking, there are a number of ways you can do this. One way is to obviously bet based on the advantage you've got, but you won't always have the time to do that. So another way of doing it is to have your bankroll, to bet a set percentage of that bankroll, anywhere from kind of 1% to 5% probably, depending on how proficient you are and how confident you are, and look to walk away with a profit at the end of each kind of 3 to 5 races. That's your aim, obviously, always. And the times that you don't, you then have the option to reduce your stakes, or you can top that bankroll back up again. But if you top your bankroll back up, always keep track of your profits and losses, so you know that you are long term making that profit. You have got that advantage. If you haven't, go back to Aldermist, go back to the LikeReal Racing, and practice it again, to build that confidence back up. And if you start second guessing your selections, please do not bet live. Go back on our LikeReal Racing platform and practice it there until you are confident again to move it live. And there is absolutely nothing wrong with going live, not being as confident as you thought you were, and dropping back into the LikeReal Racing and building that confidence back up again to that point. Okay, so I hope this has been a useful video, a useful guide of a different way of looking at racing, how you can jump in and out of racing a bit like a trader, but without necessarily having to trade. You don't have to be sat there watching the markets. You can do the same thing using form reading and analysis. You don't have to spend hours and hours and hours looking at races at the beginning of the day. You can just jump in and out. Any questions, please do let me know. Leave me a comment below. I'd love to hear from you. Love to see you trying it. If you haven't created an account on the Race Advisor yet, please do go and create an account. You can get access to our LikeReal Racing platform when you create that account, and that allows you to practice on LikeReal Racing in an environment that is like real, that when you are confident in will move exactly off into real racing. And it will be like nothing has changed. So you can build that confidence up there. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you for joining me today, and I'll look forward to seeing you in another video. Bye for now.